4:44. There was a large mirror by the staircase of a certain school, and it was said that if you stood in front of it at 4:44, then you would die. 3 girls who were part of the art club stayed behind after school one day, and, bored, they decided to stand in front of the mirror at 4:44. However, when they got there, none of them were brave enough to actually look. They decided to play rock, scissors, paper to see who would be the one forced to do it. The loser then nervously stood in front of the mirror, right as the clock hit 4:44. But nothing happened. "Seriously?" the 3 of them said, and they returned to the art room laughing about how silly the story was. Because it was just that, a story. Next thing they knew, it was after 7, and so the girls figured it was time to go home. 2 of them wrapped up and said their goodbyes, but the girl from earlier, who lost and had to look in the mirror, said she was going to remain behind a little longer to finish up her drawing. When she was finally done, she also left, but as she was passing by the mirror, she looked up at the clock. It said 7:16. She then glanced in the mirror before she could stop herself, and a hand reached out from it, grabbing her and pulling her inside. That's right. Although the clock on the wall said 7:16, in the mirror, it was actually 4:44. Kuchisake-onna's phone number. The legend of Kuchisake-onna was all the rage in the 1970s, but did you know that she has a phone number you can call as well? It's very simple. All you have to do is call 090-098-76543. When the person on the other end answers, they will ask, "Am I pretty?" If you answer with yes, then the phone will end, and that's it. But if you answer no, then a knife will reach out of the phone to cut your mouth open, just like Kuchisake-onna herself. However, if you hang some garlic around your neck when you answer this way, then you'll be able to end the call without having your mouth cut. Since this legend became popular, however, so many people were calling the phone number that it's now supposedly no longer in use. But if you dare try it, perhaps it would be best to hang some garlic around your neck first. You never know. Long hair. A university student moved into a tiny one-room apartment that was barely 6 tatami mats large. As soon as he moved in, he started cleaning, but as he did, he found numerous strands of long hair. He had short hair, so he figured they must have belonged to the previous owner, a woman. "I need to get this place clean," he said. But no matter how much he cleaned, he kept finding long strands of hair. It creeped him out, so he cleaned the place as thoroughly as he could, top to bottom. But then, the next day, he found another long strand of hair on his pillow. He was even more creeped out, but this time he tried to ignore it. No more cleaning. Yet day after day, he found more and more hair. Did someone break in? But nothing has been stolen. Nobody else had been in his apartment, so it frightened him. He didn't want to go to the police though, not just yet. That would be a little embarrassing. Instead, he decided to borrow a video camera from school and record his room. The next morning, he set the camera up and then went to school. When he returned that evening, he immediately took the tape out and played back the footage. He saw himself setting the camera up and then leaving for school. But then, before long, a woman came into view. She had long hair and was holding a hatchet. Yet all she did was walk around and around the room. He fast-forwarded the tape, but the woman circling the room continued endlessly. Then he heard himself unlocking the door, and the woman disappeared into the closet. Then he saw himself turning the camera off. That woman was in the closet behind him at that very moment. Terrified, he ran out of the apartment and went straight to the police. But it didn't matter. When he got back, nobody was there. There was, however, another strand of hair hanging off the camera. Candy Granny. The Candy Granny is said to reside in Suita City, Osaka. One day, a 14-year-old boy was on his way home from school when an elderly woman he didn't know approached him. "You're such a cute boy. Let me give you a candy," she said. The boy, wary of this stranger, politely declined and hurried home, but the woman continued following him. Afraid, the boy ran to the nearest police box, but once there, he realized the woman was gone. Finding the whole situation strange, the boy returned home, but he couldn't get that strange woman out of his mind. 1 week later, around the same time, on the same spot, he ran into that woman again. This time, she had a terrifying expression on her face, and she screamed at the boy. "Why won't you take my candy?" She then shoved a piece of candy into his mouth and forced him to eat it. The boy tried to spit it up, but the woman forced his mouth to stay shut. Scared, the boy stopped resisting and then swallowed the candy. When she saw this, the old woman smiled and then left. There were a few reports of the Candy Granny after that, but it's unknown when or where she'll show up again. Cursed red cloth. There is a saying in Japanese, "a standing arrow with white feathers." In practice, this means that somebody has been singled out, and these days is generally used in a positive way. For example, someone has been singled out for a promotion. Yet, the origin of this term isn't quite so nice, and it came from the fact that people who were to be sacrificed, people who had been chosen for such an unfortunate duty, had an arrow with a white feather shot onto their house, so everybody knew. In this vein, there is a legend from Toyama that speaks of a cursed red cloth. As the story goes, in 1984, a woman from Toyama found herself faced with a rather strange and unique problem. Whenever she returned home from work, she found a red cloth wrapped around her doorknob. At first, this didn't especially bother her, but it continued day after day, even after getting rid of the cloth. As more and more time passed, it became creepier and creepier. Finally, starting to feel genuine fear, the woman went to the police and informed them of what was happening. 3 officers visited her home and saw the red cloth on the doorknob for themselves. They collected every single piece of cloth that she had kept, and to their astonishment, they found over 400 of them. Yes, this woman had been suffering the strange phenomenon for well over a year. Police promised they would patrol the area to find the culprit, and the woman was relieved. But then, the very next day, she disappeared. This time, they found no red cloth on her doorknob, but they also didn't find the woman either. Final concert. The folk group Kaguya Hime were around for a long time, but there has long existed a legend about their final concert. Roughly 6 months prior to their final gig, a woman sent a letter to the radio program that one of the members was working on. "I bought a ticket to your final concert," it said, "but I've come down with a terrible illness and I don't know whether I'll be able to make it or not." The group member did their best to send messages of encouragement to this fan, but sadly, she passed away before the concert. Her family kept this a secret from the group until after, so as not to bring the concert down. But then, people noticed something strange when listening to the recording of the concert after the fact. There was a strange voice in the crowd that appeared to be saying something right after the MC corner. Listening closer, it was a woman's voice, and she appeared to be saying, "Let me listen as well." It was the voice of the woman who died. It seemed she showed up at the concert after all.